Hey guys, last time we left off I was building my new NAS and boy is she a beaut, she's all done. Before we get into that, I figured I'd do something I haven't done before. I'm just going to do I'm going to give a quick network diagram, quick and dirty, of what my current home network setup is. It's missing a lot of stuff, but the main stuff is in there, so that should give you an idea of kind of what I'm running. So anyway, back to the NAS. Well, like I said, she's a beaut. She's built, she's running, and she is installed in my homemade network rack. And she is, she's humming along. I already transferred all my data and shut down the old box. In the last video, I said I wasn't quite sure what OS I'd be running, so I'm gonna kind of let the cat out the bag here. So I decided to go with Freenas. Normally, I probably wouldn't have went with Freenas, but I don't know. I looked around. I was pretty happy with UNRAID, but the problem with UNRAID is that the performance is pretty limited because it's not RAID, which is a good thing, right? It's in the name, UNRAID. Because it's not RAID, you basically write to one drive or read from whatever drive it is that you have your data on, which has advantages because the file system is just written directly to the drive. If your HBA goes bad, you can simply just mount the drives to another Linux box, since it's just XFS, and you can read your data off of it if you need to. Whereas Freenas is more of a software RAID, and it works quite well. The advantages to the software RAID is, of course, that all the drives share the load, so you get much higher performance. The downside to Freenas is that you have to basically pre-plan your build, meaning that with UNRAID I can set 1 or 2 drives in there. I don't recommend anyone do it that way. You can set 1 or 2 drives in there and you can start your build that way. And then as you acquire more drives or you need more redundancy or more capacity, you can just keep adding drives, and the drives can be any size. Whereas with Freenas, you basically need to have a general idea of what your capacity is going to be. So you can, well, for example, I am running 5 8 terabyte hard drives in a RAID Z2, which is kind of the equivalent of a RAID 6. Now, because I had those drives laying around, that was pretty easy for me, no brainer. I didn't have to spend a ton of money. I also have another 3 8 terabyte drives in my old box that I can easily add to that and expand the capacity. However, I have been kind of thinking about maybe using that old box as just a replication target for my Freenas box. I mean, after all, out of those 5 8 terabyte drives, I was able to get about 20T usable. Kind of down to about 16T, which oddly enough kind of makes me feel a little sad because I feel like the number is going down too quickly. But I mean, it's still 16T. I mean, that's a crap ton of space. I did look at a couple other things. Well, I looked at one other thing, I should say. I looked at Rockstore, and Rockstore looked pretty cool. It was ButterFS, which is, I guess, the Linux equivalent of what ZFS is. It's more modern, and it has all the bells and whistles that ZFS has, except it's newer technology, which is good and bad, right? New's not always good. ZFS is old, it's proven, it works well. It's a pain in the butt if you have a problem, but when it's working, it works great. So it's a similar implementation, except it's native, it's Linux native. Now, the downside to Rockstore was I definitely wanted to run RAID 5, actually, or I should say I really want to run RAID 6. And the downside is their RAID 5/RAID 6 implementation has a bug in it, which is basically there's a write hole. For those of you who don't know what a write hole is, the write hole basically is, say you save a file and the operating system makes a call to the file to write a file to the file system, and then the drives or the array reports back, hey, the data's been written, except it doesn't write anything. It's pretty much a write hole. So not something that you really want in a box that's supposed to be a long-term storage device and archiving. I mean, that's it. I mean, I looked at the Exponology, which is basically an open source version of the Synology DSM. I'm actually not even sure if the Synology, Exponology, I guess Exponology is an officially sanctioned product. I didn't really do too much research because in the end it's just Synology running on server class parts. And if I really wanted that, I could have just bought like a rack station, which are like start about $1,500. Anyway, so that's what I got. That's my box. She runs great. I got about 200 gigs of RAM in that bad boy, which is great for my ZFS ARC. And you know, she's humming along. It's been about 3 weeks. No issues. I've transferred all my data, like I said. Got about 16T. I have about 16 terabytes of storage left. And, you know, can't complain. I have some VMs running on here. I originally thought that maybe I would possibly just remove the HBA from my R420 and buy a what is this, the S100 or SY100? I don't remember the part number, and use the onboard use the onboard SAS connector on the R420 motherboard, and then roll something like Proxmox or maybe Overt to run all my VMs on. But then the truth of the matter is, I don't really need a lot of VMs. The few that I need to run, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 VMs right now running on my Freenas box. I can probably kill at least one of them without issue. I don't really need it. The only reason I considered doing Proxmox was because I wanted to roll out Kubernetes and, you know, do all that fun stuff. But I also don't do a lot of container work anymore. All the stuff I was running in UNRAID in containers, I basically installed on an old Dell 1950, 1970. I can never remember what the model number is. I put Windows Server Essentials on there, and it's running Plex. It's running all the Plex related stuff, and that was it. I connected both of them. I should say I connected that server with the Freenas box over 10 gig Ethernet. No need for that. I've never seen Plex use that kind of bandwidth as far as like getting data from a remote NFS, or in this case, Samba Share. But again, had the parts laying around, including the cables, so I figured why not. So the only question that's left is, do I want to use my R410 as basically a Freenas replication point, which is basically means I would install Freenas on that box also, and then have like some sort of nightly backup routine to the R410, and which will only have about 16 or 12T usable storage. Or should I just go with my original plan, pull those 3 drives, and add them to Freenas, which should add another 24T of storage to my to the main Freenas box. I'm actually not quite sure if it does work out to be quite 24T because there's some loss due to using RAID. But hey, you know, I'm not running a business, so any loss that I get there, it's not really the end of the world. Anyway, that's it. I was trying to keep this one a little on the short side. Not quite sure what my next video is going to be on. It's going to be a bit busy over the next month and a half or so in terms of like personal stuff. So it might be a while before my next video, and also that might not be a bad thing. It'll give me time to figure out what I want to do my next post on. In the meantime, hit subscribe so you get all my new videos when I post them. See you later.